Welcome to today's podcast interview. I brought on Dr. Grant Crewley. Dr. Grant, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, Heather.
We have had a fascinating pre-call. For those that are new to you and your work, where do you live and what do you do?
I'm from Canada. I'm living in Chiang Mai, Thailand, the last 8 years now, and I'm a international distance healer, doctor, teacher, life engineer.
Okay. And your business and what you talked about is depth healing, which I know we're going to definitely talk about subconscious mind and things today. But if we were to start from square one, I think most of my audience that listens to this are feeling the phrase I use and that I hear from people a lot, just feeling stuck in life. The big ones are stuck financially, stuck relationally, or stuck in that negative mindset and they're seeking relief. So for those that are feeling stuck, let's talk about, well, we're going to get into cognitive dissonance, but for those that are maybe starting their path, starting on their journey, but seeking relief, where did they begin?
Me, if you just come to me, quite frankly, I'll just unstick you because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But one of the things you can do, folks, is one of your greatest friends in all of this type of work with your mind and your life and everything is a pen, blue ink, and paper. And what you do is you sit down and you can do it a number of ways. One simple way that I used about 8 years ago for myself is you take out one piece of paper and you put down on there everything that's wrong, everything that's stuck,
Yeah.
every feeling, all of it. You make another list over here, everything or anything that's working or that's nice or that makes you happy. Now, what's such a big deal about it? When you write it down, you are removing it from your head onto the paper.
Mhm.
And more importantly, when you look at it and read it, the writing, the whatever you put down is disentangled from all the other associations, the emotions, feelings. When you look at it, when you reread that, your brain will assess it differently. If you're holding it in your mind and you're just sitting somewhere trying to think of all your problems or whatever, it's all entangled. The mind is not a thing. Mind is a field, and it's entangled with everything else. So when you write it down, you're extracting it. Next, you can put another list that says, so here is where I am. And the other list is, here is where I like to be. Once you can see it real clearly like that, then you have a basis for making plans, for making decisions. Now, the most important thing you have to do when you want to make a decision is understand your own value system. If you don't know your values, you have no basis to make a decision from. And what you see people do is because they've never taken the time to really think, what are my values? So what happens is they just float through life and life throws them here, life throws them there. Unless you're Mahatma Gandhi, you cannot do that. If you do that, you will end up broken and finished. You can see it in America right now. I think something like based on what do they call that? If they do the math, something like 95 to 98% of all the Americans that make even up to 100,000 a year or 150,000 a year, they die broke. They die broke, completely broke. You don't. None of that's necessary. But if you know your values, you know where you are, you know where you want to go, then you make your decisions based on those values. If you don't, what do you have? Compromise. Now, ask yourself a simple question. Do I like to be compromised? If you like peace and quiet and you live in a place where it's nothing but noise.
Yeah.
Look at Heather. Heather was in the corporate world and she hated it. It's not, it's a compromised, because she hates it, it's a compromise. If she loved it, it's not compromise. So what you do is you start to chip away until every part of your life, your body, your relationships, what you do for money, where you go is congruent with your values. Then you have power, you have flow, and you're happy. And then you move from there. What the reason I say come to me is it's a lot of this stuff is so easy to say it and it's hard to do. It's not your fault. It's just the way we're designed. We're designed by the universe and nature as a survival mechanism. We have a subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is programmed all the way to the age of 7 before you start to think. Your brain, the frontal cortex does not start till the age of 7. So you're like a vacuum cleaner sucking up information until then. And none of that information belongs to you. It's mom and dad and the environment. Why are we designed like that? Think of a kid being born on the Amazon Delta in a hut. And then think of another kid that's being born in a high-rise apartment in Manhattan, New York. The environmental information that the kid in New York needs to live and survive in that environment and the Amazon are completely different. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now what happens is when they grow up, if you take the kid from the Amazon and the kid from the Manhattan and you put them both on a great big cow farm way out in the western United States, they're going to see that farm and everything completely different. Why? Because everything they see or perceive, smell or touch is being filtered through the subconscious strata, one from Amazon, one from Manhattan. And what does that do? Well, the different perception gives each one of them a different vibration. The different vibration by resonance gives them a different experience and a different life. So like, let's say the cow farm, there's a lot of rain and the farmer had just laid down lots and lots of cow manure. So the Manhattan man, when he's standing in it, he's perceiving this as filth. It's all E. coli and disease and flies. And the kid from the Amazon, he knows this is a healthy farm. And the farmer, of course, he loves it. It's the same cow manure, the same flies, and the same smell. But the guy from Manhattan, he comes down with really severe disease. He gets E. coli, his immune system goes down. He's unhappy, he's disgusted, everything's repulsive. The farmer never gets sick, happy, proud. And the Amazon guy, because he grew up in the jungle, he loves nature, everything's okay. It's all the perception based on the subconscious data, how they were raised. It is never this. This is important to the extent that the subconscious endorses it. If it endorses it, like mine does now, the world is your oyster. You will not be stuck. But if your subconscious works against you, you will be stuck.
Okay, so you just shared a ton, and I want to break it down a little bit. So in the very beginning, what you were sharing there, which I think is very important. So, and I really understood what you were saying, the importance of getting it out of your head and getting it onto pen and paper. Now, this is something I've been doing for years, and for me, it was very innate because all that mental chaos, and this is what I hear from people, right? We feel that mental chaos, the confusion, the whatever. and you can't think from that state of being, and that's why you're saying, so I just want listeners to understand step number one, get it out of your head onto pen and paper because it creates clarity. That's what I heard
That's
from
right.
you.
That's right.
Okay. And then
Absolutely.
from there, you can start creating forward focus or new a vision. But something
That's
that you
right.
touched on, which really is very important, are values. And if that is new to somebody, can you give some examples if they don't know what we're talking about? What are values?
Absolutely. So a value is like in my it says I'll relate it through me. So one of the things that I value is nature. So I am always surrounded. I absolutely must have that value satisfied for me. Now I tried living when I was studying to be a doctor, and I lived in Houston, Texas, and we were like more in the city, and I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah.
It's against my value system, and it just so I that value has got to be met. The other value for me is I used to be a concert cellist. I hate noise, so I will not have noise in my environment. What I value is refined professional musicians or the sound of nature. Like here, you can I don't know if you can hear all the birds here in Chiang Mai, or I love silence. Those
Yep.
are values. If you're looking for a lover, uh, you think to yourself, what are your values in a lover? Which means, how does the lover make you feel when you're with them? What are those values? Are like qualities. They're not things. They're not things. Does that answer that question?
Yeah. And
They're a value. They're like a quality.
yes. And I'll share mine and kind of what you stated is for me, working a 9 to 5, going through life's motions was against my values of freedom, creativity, and adventure.
That's right.
I was living in a box and my soul craved the freedom to explore, have adventure, and be creative in my own voice.
Yep. That's exactly. And see what happened? She has both the courage and she doesn't have dissonance to block her, and she left. And when she left, correct me if I'm wrong, you're a happy lady.
Very, yes. But I also want to say, I mean, it is not rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns. Doing what I do, entrepreneurship, building a business.
Hmm.
I left a 9 to 5 for a 24/7, 365, but I love
Hmm.
what I do. So there's a big difference.
Yes.
Now
And
let's talk about this because I literally had to Google this term before our interview. And I think it's fascinating. I guess I do talk at it, but a different angle. So I want to hear it from you. This very I think it's like a scientific term, but can we talk about what is cognitive dissonance? And this is where people's blocks are.
yeah, cognitive dissonance, folks, is the uh, top key to all human behavior and all human problems and or their happiness. Okay. So again, let me run a couple of numbers for you because you need to understand the ratio. A subconscious mind is recording information at a rate of 40 million bits of information per second. The frontal cortex, your educated brain, even if you have 16 PhDs, it is only recording 40 bits of information per second. It's extremely weak. So the ratio is 1 to 1 million. Okay. Now, subconscious mind doesn't belong to you. It belongs to mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and the television and the computer and the dog and your brothers and sisters and everything. And it takes it all in literally. So it's just considered as fact. If the child has a strange experience, what they're doing with subconscious mind, it works on a principle called spontaneous generation. So spontaneous generation means it's how a caveman used to think. You know, if you had to hug the caveman and he sees ants on the tree trunk, by spontaneous generation, he makes a direct association that the tree produced the ants. Ants aren't producing themselves to hug the caveman. Same when we're little children, we make direct association. So like when I was, I'll give you a simple example. When I was a little boy, my mom and dad are both chain smokers, and my dad was a Pollock. So in the winter, so he worried about money all the time. So I was born in Canada, and winters are cold. So dad always closed all the windows and the doors, you know, to keep the heat of the house in. But they're both smoking, chain smoking all the time. So I thought, as it was through spontaneous generation, that nighttime when they turn the lamps on and you can see all the smoke hanging in the air, if you've ever seen it, like fog. I thought, I believed that nighttime meant that the air gets thick by spontaneous generate, by the subconscious mind. That's the only level of association it's capable of. And it would really confuse me if we went outside at night and the air was clean. It's like, oh. So then you would say, make association, air only gets thick in houses. It doesn't get thick outside. So this is called spontaneous generation, and that's the only level you have. Now, the problem is all of that data, if it's all great data, if you happen to have a mom and dad who promoted you to be explorative, built up your self-image and your self-esteem and belief that you can do anything and have anything you want, that you're very beautiful, you have a great body, you're loved, you feel safe, secure, the world is a great place, and it's easy for you to have anything you want. You can do anything you want. If you have those kind of parents, you have very little cognitive dissonance to succeed in the world. If you're like me, my dad was born from Polish immigrants during the Great Depression. He had pure lack consciousness. And then he's a good man, hard worker, he's an electrician, but he had lack consciousness. And I grew up, the only thing I was ever told is very hard to have money, very difficult. You have to work like a dog to get it. Only rich people, it's because of who they know, and they're different than us. And we are the working class, get a regular job like a plumber and just work hard, you know, which is what I did. I worked, went to be a martial arts specialist. I worked 10 years in the factories and did labor, manual labor. I've done all those things. And then I broke out, done. Because I'm just like Heather. Inside my programming, this is not the same programming from the parents now. That's different. This is a karma. This is a karmic, this is something different. I can explain that if you like me to explain that, because there are 10 full programs that control all life and the universe. And but the subconscious that I'm talking about is, depending on what we took in there, if it's negative, limiting, if it's frightening, if you were beat up all the time, if you were sexually abused, that's in your field. Those perceptions and that subconscious data creates a resonance. And your life that you've experienced, the people you meet, the people you marry, the money you make, your health is all brought to you by resonance. And the resonance is being determined by what is active in the subconscious, because it's the powerhouse. This is not the powerhouse at all, and it never will be. You're not designed for it. So did I answer the question?
Here's what I wanted to bring this back, like kind of full circle in summary, because I really like to make things high level and very digestible. And what I hear
Okay.
you saying, because I talk about subconscious mind a lot, and I love how Dr. Bruce Lipton says that your life, your current circumstances are a printout of your subconscious programming.
That's right.
I also think of it as like, think about your mind, the subconscious, as your OS, your operating system. How
Mm.
often do our phones update? All the time. How often do we update our programming? Kind of never, unless you're doing the work, right? And so here's what I want to share with people, which is what you're saying with cognitive dissonance. You can hustle and grind and struggle and effort all you want. Let's say money. Money's an easy one I think most people can relate to. If you come from a lack consciousness like you did, and many people do that, lack mentality, scarcity, not enough, a lot of fear, worry, anxiety around money. If that's your subconscious programming, but your conscious mind 5% desires, just for fun, let's say $1 million or financial abundance and freedom, there's a disconnect, a misalignment. And no matter how hard you work, you cannot override you cannot override the subconscious with a conscious desire.
That's right. But you cannot. If you
But
could, folks, everybody would be rich.
Right. But here's the good news. We can reprogram. We can, what I say, pull the weeds and plant new seeds, which is something you do with depth healing. But can we explain to people? I mean, I believe awareness is step number one, but literally any area of life you're struggling, the top three I see are relationships, health, and money. If you're struggling in those three major areas, it's because you have a desire that is not in alignment with your operating system.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Well, Dr. Grant, we have good news because we can change the trajectory of our life, right? Some people talk about jumping timelines, and let's not go down that rabbit hole. But how can we offer people like this good news and shining a light that you can change your subconscious programming?
I do it for people all over the world every day, folks. After this podcast, I'm going to be doing it for a couple of people right away.
Yeah.
That's what depth healing is designed to do. And the difference between me and most systems is I do it with surgical precision. So I have empowerments through Tibet and empowerments through India and Japan in order to be able to do that. Doesn't matter if you're on Pluto, as long as I can see you, I can change everything for you. And I change it in real time.
Yes.
There's no time lag. It's immediate.
So that's the good news. I want people to know that struggling, it doesn't have to be the rest. It's not a life sentence. Now,
No.
I want to go back to a story that you shared, that story about the guy from New York and the guy from the Amazon. You were talking all about perception, our mental programming, our paradigm, our world view. So the two things you highlighted for me in our pre-call, which is creating our reality, is our perception and our resonance. Now I'm familiar with those, but can we talk about vibration? And even, I don't know if you're big into quantum physics, but
I'm a specialist of quantum physics. That's
okay,
what
well, I
I'm a
want to go
mystic.
down
And
that rabbit hole.
okay, so this is I got a good analogy for you folks, and you'll understand it right away. I want you to imagine a gigantic warehouse. Let's say it's 100 stories high and it's about 100 miles long, and it's filled with big rooms and little rooms. And you know what a tuning fork is? You know, like a little tuning fork, and it goes like that, and you hit it and goes ding, and it's got a vibration. So inside this gigantic warehouse, it's millions of different kinds of tuning forks. Some of them are gigantic, some of them are microscopic, and there's all kinds, okay? They're all over there. And then there's one door. Now, the warehouse is the universe, or make it more simple, just Earth itself, okay? And so that's the space. Now, the tuning forks are all of the things in potential. So Dispenza likes to talk about when Dr. Joe will talk about the potential in the quantum field. Like there's a potential for you to be a millionaire, or there's a potential for you to be cancer free, and they're all there in what they call in fancy terms superposition.
Yeah.
And then some of those tuning forks could be husbands or wives and lovers and children and a ranch out in Texas and a palace in India. All these things they're all there. So you walk in, you got a tuning fork, one tuning fork. It's your primary worldview vibration tuning fork, and you walk through the front door and you go, "Wing!" And when at that moment that your tuning fork, you're vibrating, irregardless of where it is in that gigantic warehouse, through the walls, through everything, every single tuning fork, microscopic or gigantic, that is the same frequency will start to buzz. And none of the other tuning forks who are not the same frequency, no matter how close, they're not the same frequency, they will not buzz. And all the ones that are buzzing are going to try to come to you and bring you to them. And that is the quantum field, that's resonance. What gives you your tuning fork? Your perception. What gives you your perception? Your subconscious strata.
Okay, I love that, and such a great visual. Something I also use, like you were talking about that warehouse. For me, I think of an Excel spreadsheet, because Excel spreadsheet goes on for infinity, and I just think of, like, as you said, the potential. So the tuning forks, that anything you can imagine. The fact that you can imagine means it's possible for you to experience.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So something that came to mind, I think people can relate and understand this, the phrase, your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah, that's right.
Or you are
That's
the
good.
average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And what that cliche or that term is stating is, we're, like you're saying, we're all energy frequent. I love Nikola Tesla's quote. If you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, vibration.
Yeah, that's all it is.
And what I read in a long time ago, Dr. Wayne Dyer's book, is we don't attract what we want, we attract what you are. So what you're saying in that example, what I want people to understand is, we are energy, and your desires, circumstances, people, the money, the home, experiences are also energy. And when you are no longer wanting and lacking, right? Like Neville Goddard says, to live from the end, which means to be that energy, and then we attract it into our life, right?
That's exactly right.
What I understand, and the reason most people don't, quote, manifest or get their desires, is because they're living in a wanting lack mentality versus feeling as if, and this is not fake it till you make it, but embodying it till you become it. That's how I think of it.
It's just that it's all true, but the dissonance is the key. You, no matter what you try to do, the dissonance is the key. If the dissonance, the subconscious mind, folks, is it's an ocean, it's a field. They know now. There's no thinking done inside your brain. Your brain is an antenna array. They now know. Lipton's been talking. Bruce Lipton's been talking about. I think they call it a magnetoencephalogram or something, and they found all of the thoughts. Everything is outside. Yeah, even you are not in here. The real you is outside, and your body is an avatar. That's another story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So your subconscious is like a field. Now, I want you to imagine a piano, and the keyboard is miles and miles long. And it's got millions and millions of little keys. And each key is related to the subconscious, is to a belief or a trigger or an experience. So as you are living life, what I call environmental triggers can be a sound, a smell, a sight, anything. it hits the key. It'll touch the key. And then the key relays or activates in the subconscious. The subconscious data, now you gotta understand, the subconscious data is old. It's old. If you get enough consciousness and awareness to a level of a observer, and you watch the subconscious mind and the inner dialogue, it's all old, dead, gone stories. And then they just play. The trick with human beings is you identify with the story, and then the story carries you off somewhere. But I want you to realize it's this gigantic field. Now, something like depth healing, I call it depth healing because it's enormously sophisticated. It took me 53 years of study to develop it. What you can do is we can change the keys and triggers, like things that make you mad, we can shut them off. Almost all my I lived in a state of rage, folks, for 20 years. I developed breast cancer from the amount of rage. I broke my back in half when I was 27 from rage. It's all gone. The cognitive dissonance was removed and the triggers were removed. Nowadays, it takes quite a bit to get a rise out of me. But I'm I don't know if your audience knows, I'm a military martial specialist first, and I became a doctor later. I used to teach professional military how to fight and kill on the field of battle. So, what was I saying, honey? I just lost
you
my.
had a lot of rage and ridding
yes.
of all that.
It's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
The process works, but you can imagine how different it is to be happy now and have lots of friends. I have a beautiful wife here in Thailand, and I make lots of money, and I'm a happy man.
Yeah.
Versus I was angry, frustrated. I used to do all those huge business seminars. Nothing ever worked. I was as poor as a church mouse. I had to survive from my wife's income. Tammy was a physical therapist, and she made nothing I did. Didn't matter what I knew. I had all kinds of titles.
Yeah.
It didn't mean nothing. And then when I got rid of the dissonance, I met Dr. Habursky, got rid of that dissonance, and life changed 180 degrees.
Even in that story, what I just wrote down, which I hear a lot, like I'm very observant. I listen to people's stories. I just finished watching an Arnold Schwarzenegger autobiography, a docu-series on Netflix. And even what I loved about Arnold, his different stages of life, he kept having identity shifts. And that's what I heard from you. That old version of you, full of rage and pain and all those things, literally like a death of the old self, for you now to create this new version of you who is happy, healthy, wealthy, living his best life, right?
Right.
And that's possible for everyone. I kind of want to, something you shared with me. Oh, sorry, were you saying something?
All I was going to say is, like, as Arnold will say, you got to do the work.
Yes, 100%.
Work.
Something you shared with me, I always like to ask my guests, if you could give humanity a billboard message, what would it be?
Yeah, the billboard message, folks, is right now, the world, we are we're hanging by a thread, folks, the whole entire earth. Okay. Bruce Lipton will tell you over and over again, we're way past the middle of the 6th mass extinction. That's just Mother Earth. And that extinction means we're gone. Everything's gone.
Yeah.
And then you have all the other things going on, right? And the divine, and when I say the divine is a civilization of great beings. Not one. There's a whole gigantic civilization. And that gigantic divine wants and is working double time to help us and save us and do all kinds of stuff and take care of you. And part of the divine says that we are here on earth to have our desires satisfied. and it's correct and proper to have your desires, your worldly desires, from India, we call iham. Your home, your family, your kids, your love life, abundance, that is all totally supported by the divine. And then there's the param, which is your spiritual life, your spiritual attainment, your levels of consciousness, and then after you die, what happens there? That's param. Now, my billboard message is reach for, look for, and move toward the divine. If you don't know how, get a hold of me and I'll help you. That's how I do everything. Even when I do this podcast, I'm all connected. I get up at 4 a.m. I spend hours every day. I bond with the divine. Divine lives right here with me. I've literally set out on my altar a big cinnamon bun like that. And when I woke up in the morning, it's gone. Not even a crumb. I ask for a sign, they give me the sign. Yeah. The divine is the real deal. Now, if you approach the divine, there's two ways to go through life. You can go through life on your own and do it all yourself or think you're doing it yourself. You wouldn't be alive if the divine wasn't there protecting you. Just think to yourself, how many times have you almost been killed? Over here, I've been almost killed just by Thai drivers alone. But in any case, you can think that you're doing it all on your own, and that's cool. And then the fast track is you make a relationship with the divine and ask them to take care of stuff for you. That's what I do. As soon as I moved here in 2015, April 2015, I moved here and I already had my bond. I left my ex-wife. I came here and I told the divine, just lift me up. Now I have clients all over the entire world. In Thailand, I live as a millionaire status, and my work is expanding and elevating because the divine is expanding me daily. Daily. If you want to know how to do it, it's very simple, actually. All you do is think of what kind of relationship you want with the divine, and then you talk. How do you meet a good-looking girl or a good-looking guy? You talk to them. So you talk to the divine. You say, I want a personal relationship with you. Come to me like this, whatever way you want them to come to you. And then you talk to them like a friend. Don't look up at the sky and say, Heavenly Father. It's weak, way too weak. That's old fashioned. Because it's like going to if the entire Rocky Mountain range is the divine, and you're going to try to talk to the whole mountain range. No, that's why the divine brings Jesus down and puts some sandals on him, and he walks around in a cloak because everybody there can relate to him. When the divine comes into India and China, it comes as Buddha. It doesn't come as Frank Sinatra. It's gonna come in a form that the people can relate to, so that they can make a relationship. Yeah. If you want Jesus, call in Jesus, but say, I want you to come right here in the kitchen and sit down and have a cup of coffee with me. I want you to help me personally. I need money. I need success. I want you to open the doors for me so that I can move in this direction. If I have blocks, show them to me, bring them up into my awareness, and so that they can be cleared and healed. But open the doors for me, make it easy for me. I'm tired and I'm scared or I'm sick. I need your help. And I assure you, on my word of honor as G. Rex Crewley, the divine will not let you down. It will not. When she left the corporate and just jumped off into the world, divine will not let you fall. Never let you fall. But you at this time now, the dark side is also elevating itself enormously. Now all the little girls, all the little boys are becoming girls, and the families are being broken. All you got to do is open your eyes and see what's going on, right? So that's the dark side, and the light side is here for us. Totally approach it. And if you don't know how, get a hold of me. Just go to depthhealing.org, get a hold of me, and I'll help you.
Yeah. Well, even on that note, what you're really saying is we all have connection, and whatever you want to call it, whatever you resonate with, right? God, divine, source, energy, universe, whatever you connect to. But number one, you have to open the door, right? We
Yes.
have, because it's all, we are always being guided. We have access to it all the time, but we have to invite it in. And then I
Yes.
have found you have to create space and stillness to hear the messages, to feel the nudges, to get the answers. So not only do you have to invite it, you have to create the space.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, you know, everybody's familiar with Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza did everything through the divine. His divine is called Ramtha. And that's everything he does it through Ramtha. My divine is the Param Jyoti Shriyama Bhagavan in India. So what she says is correct. There's no such thing as a wrong divine or anything like that. Divine is divine.
Yeah.
The relationship is entirely up to you. So it's all in your hands. Then by the way the brain is made, we have the reticular activating center. It means, have you ever played this game with the family where you're driving on a long trip and someone will say, see who sees the most yellow cars. And all of a sudden, if there's a yellow car on that highway, you'll see it. Because because you're looking for it, the mind will automatically see the yellow car. If you didn't want to find the yellow car, a million yellow cars go by, you never notice it. So with spiritual life, what she says, when you invite it in, you start to look for the synchronicities and you start to look for grace. Everything's by grace. Once you're in the flow with my work, one of my objectives is to get my client to be living in the flow of grace. Once you are living in the flow of grace, life is completely different.
Yeah.
But you have to look for it, invite it, and then, as she says, create the space. Like in the morning rituals are the key. Number one, top. Don't look at the phone ever. Don't look at a computer for however long you can, and bond with the divine. Sit in quiet, journal. You make that quiet space. Set your energy. Then, when that's all completed, you turn on the phone or the computer, because the phone or the computer will immediately access subconscious programming, and then you belong to it. You belong to the agenda. My book, I wrote a book called Want More, and it's basically a Zen treatise. You can find it on Amazon, and I wrote it for corporate America back in 2012. How to use your body to punch a hole in the agenda. Because the agenda what is an agenda? It's future based. And it's a to-do list. And you get swept up in the to-do list and you never experience your life. You're not alive. Then one day you get old and you're dying. And you finally slow down long enough to notice life because you're dying. That's a hell of a way to live. But millions live and die that way.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it. It's nice to be experiencing your life now. Feel your body now. Smell, taste, touch now.
Presence for sure. So I have a question for you. In the interest of time, we've covered many topics today. Most importantly, I feel, is the subconscious mind, understanding the program so that you can create the change. However, I want to ask you, what do you believe is a key takeaway you want listeners to get?
The key takeaway, because this kind of thing always upsets me, and that's why I call my system depth healing. There's millions and millions of people, and some of them are some of the big shots, and they make it sound so simple. And you don't just do an affirmation and manifest. That's all pure hogwash. That you have to really, it's not as easy as it sounds. You got to go and do the work. And if you want to go deep, you won't do it yourself. You got to go to somebody else. Just like me. I can't, I'm a master of my craft, but I cannot clearing out my own subconscious that I need the divine to do it now for me. I went to Larry Habersky for 8 years to remove my lack consciousness. I don't want you to think you just, because there's something very tragic about being duped, thinking something's going to happen, and then you're just disappointed. You think something's going to happen, disappointed. Think something's going to happen, disappointed. So if you really want to do this, it's totally possible. It's all possible. But you got to actually go in and find the dissonance, remove the dissonance, be reflective. You have to do these things. You do not have to spend months, or in my case, I do with depth healing what it takes months or years to do, I can do in hours, few hours. But you still got to do it. Whatever way you want to go, you got to do it. It's not like this.
Yes.
That's all a lie. That's complete. There's no other word for it. It's a lie. You got to do, you have to do what you have to do, right? Like nutrition. This podcast is about consciousness and the mind. But if we're drinking water, they've got it loaded with chemicals that feminize the boys, destroys the sperm count, and it has full of fluoride, and that calcifies, wipes out your pineal gland, and you need lots of omega-3, high-grade omega-3 fish oil with high DHA to support your brain. You need good nutrition, good water. You need to take care of the brain itself. You need a certain amount of vigilance and sophistication, and you absolutely must unplug yourself from the negative brainwashing, which is the media.
Yeah.
You must do that.
Oh, I mean, this really is about creating a lifestyle. You don't go to the gym one time and you're set for life. This is creating
That's right.
daily rituals, practices, and the two terms I use is becoming mindful and intentional every day.
As much as you can.
Yeah.
And remember what she had said earlier. You attract your world by what you are or what you became.
Yeah.
So one way to find out what's in your subconscious is to look at your world. What have you, who are you with? What have you got? What don't you have? And that's a reflection exactly of you.
Yeah.
If it's making you very inspired and very happy, it's good. If it's making you unhappy, sick, depressed, angry, it's bad. So that kind of negative lifestyle means we got to go inside. You got to go inside, and when you change inside, that'll all change. You understand? So one of the ways to become aware is to always be looking reflectively. Like if something happens, how did I attract that? Ask the question, how did I attract that? And look for the answer. Consciousness is a flashlight that follows the question. That's why in like someone like Tony Robbins is a master of neurolinguistic programming. They ask questions that imply the answer. Like when you ask a question, where is the joy in this? So let's say you have to do something that's miserable, and you ask a question, where is the joy in this? The question presupposes that joy exists there. So the brain will start to go through its file system to find the joy. So if you say, how can I heal through this or from this? It implies you can heal. Mm. So the question leads the consciousness. You understand? Yeah. So when you're looking at if you want to understand who you are, what your programming is, look at everything that's around you, interacting with you, everything. Yeah. That's you. That's the programming. That's the resonance. And then we have somewhere to go from there. That's why when I meet you, I'll say, give me my targets. How can I be of service? And then you start telling me what the problem is, and we get rid of the problem.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I'd love to wrap up the interview, so I have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Okay, fire away.
What is a quote or motto that you live by?
Oh, quote or motto that I live by. Oh, I never thought of that. I guess what comes to my mind, strength and honor. That's a good one. I never thought of that.
What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
I enormously recommend Iron John by Robert Bly. Iron John by Robert Bly. Changed the entire course of my life when I was about 30 years old.
What was that book about?
That is a book of Iron John is the fairy tale written by the Grimm brothers a few hundred years ago on how the process of how a boy becomes a man. And it's I've recommended it to several hundred people by now. And one of the best ways to Robert Bly was a world famous poet with a very amazing voice, and you can go on YouTube and listen to the audio book for free, read by Bly with commentary, and that'll teach mothers on about their sons, boys for their fathers, the enormous wounds that exist between boys and their dads, especially nowadays, even for the men for their boys. So it's an enormously valuable book.
Final question. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, I know. With wealth consciousness, my habit I have now for the last several years, daily saving a couple of bucks. If I had saved a couple of bucks every day like I do now, by now at this age, I'd actually be a millionaire. Yeah. Well, wealth consciousness is one of the most important of all kinds of consciousness to develop, folks. Wealth consciousness means you only see and notice with gratitude what you do have, never what you don't have. Never. Only what you do have, and then you must make the wording, languaging match that. And then wealth will come to you by simple resonance.
Yeah. I love that message, and it's such a great note to end on. Dr. Grant, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, honey. I really enjoyed this very, very much.